Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here with the Spartan Rocketry Club, continuing our build of the Estes DARC-1. We have some gluing to do on the main body too, but before we do that, there's one little bit of work I want to do first because I want the glue to set as quickly as possible, and that is we are going to make kind of a mount uh, to allow us to connect this, the nose cone, to the rest of the rocket. So in order to do that, we need this piece right here. And actually, before I punch it out, there are a couple little bits that need to be removed. And I'm going to cut with my hobby knife here. This big one I probably didn't need to cut, but I'm going to cut all the attachment points here so I can easily get these little pieces out before I start dealing with the whole big thing. So that little bit's gone, the circle's gone. This one, like I said, I could punch that out pretty easily. That wasn't really an issue, but I was doing it anyway. You certainly could take the time to cut all these joints or attachment points. That would not be a bad plan, but I'm going to just kind of skip through like so. All right, so this is going to go on the smaller of the two tubes. And this one, it needs to be measured according to the instructions. I want to measure 2 inches from, well, I mean, it doesn't really matter at this particular juncture, but 2 inches from one end. So I'm going to do that. 2 inches is right there. And as usual, I'm going to get this on before I put the glue on. Just it's easier that way as far as I'm concerned. Now, it truly doesn't matter which way this goes, but the instructions really want it going this way with 2 inches this direction. But again, it doesn't matter for now. We can just rotate it. And it's going to be sitting, drying in the near future, or for a little bit anyway, so not a big deal. All right, so nozzle a little bit. I'm going to put a thin ring of glue around, just shy of really that 2-inch line. So I'm going to push the piece and push the glue in the process. Okay. Now I want that to be at a right angle with the tube, so I'm going to check it. It is not lying this way. I'm going to adjust it, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees and check again, and that looks pretty good. The excess glue here, I am going to kind of, it's not really a fillet, but I wanted to clean it off, and I did. So that's great. All right, I do want to check this before I let it dry. I should have 2 inches from, not from the edge of it, but from actually, the far end. And that looks, I mean, it's a little short this way, but once you add in the extra space for the cardboard or cardstock piece itself, that's probably pretty good. So this needs to dry before we do anything else with it. There are a couple other little things that need to happen, but that's going to have to wait probably until the next video. All right, so skipping back a bit, we are ready. Some time ago, we added all these little pieces to the wings, so they are set. And we've got, this is a stabilizer, it's a tail fin or something. And all these pieces are going to be added to the tube right here. And I've marked off 5/8 of an inch on each of the lines, just to make sure. I made 2 lines here. It's the back of the 2. So I really should be, erasing things when I realize they're wrong. But frequently what I end up doing, because either I can't erase it or it doesn't erase well, I just put next to the bad one. This is all going to get painted over anyway. All right, so I need this fin right here. And this is going to be facing what I would consider to be the wrong direction. It's going to look like this. So make sure you've got the appropriate side that you're putting glue on. All right. And I'm going to use the usual trick, 2 layers of glue, spread them out, and let it dry a little bit in between so we get a nice strong joint. 30 seconds or so ought to be an adequate amount in order to pull this off. By the way, we are not going to finish this section today either, or at least in this video, because this needs to dry before we do anything else. All right, that's probably been long enough. I'm going to add again. I don't want much glue at all. I want a thin layer here. Okay, it's thin. Spread it out. Okay. And then I'm going to add it to the one where I messed up the line a little bit first. So I'm going to start back here and I'm going to roll it forward. I need to adjust it a little bit because I felt the roll go the wrong way. And I want to make sure it's centered on that line. I can't actually see the front right now through my hands. Maybe you can see it. I can feel it wobbling about too a little bit. So it definitely needs to be checked. But I'm going to hold it here for a good 30 seconds, maybe pushing a minute, to make sure that the glue is at least tacky before I start fiddling around with it, because there's a good chance that when I start fiddling around with it, it could flop over, and that, of course, would be bad. All right, so glue is starting to tack. I'm going to clean that excess off. I'm going to check my alignment. It looks, it's almost in the middle, a little tiny adjustment. I'm just looking down the barrel of the tube and trying to get the wood right in the middle of the line. It's not quite right. All right. And naturally, of course, I messed up the back a little bit doing that. Okay. All right, that looks reasonably good. I also want to check right now for some straightness. This isn't going to be perfect, but I do want it as close to perpendicular as I can get for the time being. All right, so that's taken care of. I'm going to grab a glue bottle here, and I'm going to put my rocket, the back of it, like so, to let it dry a little bit, because I can't hold it and do the next step at the same time. This diameter body tube fits well over most of the glue applicators that I have lying around. That glue bottle, by the way, is like fabric glue. I don't know why it's mixed in with my rocketry stuff. I never use it for that, but I have some other crafting things around here. I guess that's probably why. But I certainly don't want to use it on my wood glue here, because that would defeat the purpose entirely. Right, so same deal here. We're gonna put a first layer on, 30 seconds or so, and then add the second layer. Do be careful when you are attaching these. This tail fin, I guess, is up. We could think of it as up. The parts that we added here are going to have to face down. So this one is going to be, it's going to be on this side. So I would call that right, but however you choose to describe it, it's not very accurate. Let's just say it's going to be counterclockwise to the fin that we've attached already. And I really hope at this point you made sure that you did not make two identical copies of this. They're wings, so they have to be mirror images of each other, not identical copies. All right, attaching the next one then. Hopefully the glue on this has decided it wants to tack pretty well. I can't lay this down flat like I did last time because there's a fin there. It'll get in the way. So I'm going to have to do this with my left hand, holding things up off the ground, and hopefully it doesn't flop over while I'm fiddling around with it. Same deal. I'm going to start at my line and then roll it forward, and we'll worry about alignment once the glue is tacked for about 30 seconds again. Fortunately, nothing has flopped off on the other side yet, but that is a distinct possibility. There is no benefit to rushing through this. In fact, if you try to get these fins on as quickly as possible, you're probably going to have to re-glue them, which is kind of the sad truth of the affair. If it takes you longer, it's just giving the glue more time to tack and to set. I mean, it's not going to fully set, but to be so that you don't need to be paying full attention to it. All right, I'm going to clean up my excess glue here. A little bit this side too. We're going to put a fillet in there eventually, but for the time being, I don't need extra glue where it doesn't belong. I'm going to check the alignment. It looks like I centered it pretty well up front. So I'm pretty happy with that. As for whether it's at a right angle, it definitely is not. So I need to adjust it quite a bit here. I think actually it is a little off at the front end, which isn't great. But yeah, this definitely is not at a right angle. I'm not entirely sure why. It's just not. All right. That looks pretty good, but I think I might have sanded this down here so that it's not perfectly flat. That could be a problem down the road. So I suspect this is going to be a little on the weak side for the time being. So that one's definitely going to have to dry. Probably more than I normally would allow. All right, well, while it's drying, let's do the final fit here. And remember too, the more glue you put on, that doesn't mean it's going to be any stronger. There's kind of a minimum threshold that you need to get on to make the joint, but after that, you're just you're making the glue take longer to dry, which is probably not going to be beneficial to you, especially if you are trying to put fins on. So let's face it, they take a while to set up, which is irritating. All right. By the way, this is not really an alignment guide because it's much too small to actually use as an alignment guide, but it looks to me like the fins are not set at 120 degree increments. I don't think that's the case. I don't know. It's hard to say. We can't really use this to gauge where things are because it's not full scale, but we can try. And we're going to do that as soon as I get the last fin on here, and then we can check for final alignment. All right. Just checking my angle here for a little bit. Looks decent. Now, I have to be very careful this time so that this fin is probably not going anywhere at this point. This one is very heavy, especially out at the end, so it's going to be hard to keep in place if the glue has not set adequately here. Okay, rolling it forward just like before. Really trying not to get my fingers near it because I really don't want to bump it. That would be bad. I suppose I could rotate it a little bit to make this fin closer to being vertical, but then I kind of lose what I'm doing on this fin, and it's probably not worth the trouble. Okay, so I'm going to let this set a little longer than usual again because of how heavy it is at the edges, and it feels like the other fin hasn't moved, which makes me more confident in allowing it more time. All right, cleaning up the glue. This side isn't too bad, just a little bit. And then checking this alignment it's not quite centered in the back. Adjust it a little bit that way, and it's definitely not centered up front either. Now, I don't know if I moved it or what happened there, but yeah, this one is not as centered, so this needs a little bit of work here. Right. Yeah, and as I, of course, bump things around, they start to flop around. So I'm going to have to hold this in place for a little bit longer now that I've got it where I want it to be, because I broke the initial tack phase of this. It's okay. It's better to have it on right after 2 tries than not to have it on right after 1. All right. Now this is by no means set, so I'm going to try to nudge it up to vertical. All right. Oh, and it got a little bit caught in the breeze. So my air conditioners are running right now. I could feel that too. All right. Well, let's try it again here. course, the risk here is that once I get everything lined up, I still need it to dry, and that could still flop off. Things are not where they ought to be, and I haven't let it sit long enough. So don't try to rush through this. There's no benefit to it, and you really need to let the whole thing dry before you move on to the next stage anyway. So, all right. Yeah, boy, that is really weak right now. All right. It is reasonably centered up front. It is pretty well centered in the back, and it looks pretty close to vertical this way. All right. That still feels really weak. So at this point, what we're going to do is I'm going to grab my glue bottle here. Let's just use the other one, I guess. Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, apparently we need to start this one not completely from scratch, but we got to try it again. Because that first bit of glue was great, but I didn't do a good job holding it in place long enough. Well, and the ultimate problem was that I didn't have it lined up right. So we're going to do it again. This should actually be not quite as bad because there's already some residual glue on here. So I really shouldn't need to put the second layer on. This application here kind of is the second layer. And there's already glue on the rocket itself. So hopefully adherence will not be too big of a problem. Actually, let's rotate it around because I prefer going this direction. Not entirely sure why, it just is easier for me personally. Okay, now I know I can see right now that I didn't have it in the right place up front. So I'm going to try to get this alignment as accurate as I can before I let go. And I would really prefer to not have to adjust things. That would be, let's say, unfortunate. That feels a lot better this time. Let's just hope that the vertical is pretty good. All right, looking down the barrel again, vertical looks pretty close. All right, so I'm going to put it here, and I'm going to allow it to rest. Hopefully it doesn't decide to flop in the breeze too much. I mean, it's wobbling, but yeah, that's fine. All right, so in between now and the next video, I need to let this dry thoroughly, and I need to let the rocket itself, dry thoroughly. So it's a good place to stop. Thanks for watching, and we'll pick it up in the next video.